Hey everybody, I'm Eboni K. Williams along with Kat Timpf and Eric Bolling. 5 o'clock will never be the same. We are the Fox News specialists. So let's meet today's specialist. She became a polling extraordinaire after launching the Polling Company, Inc. She's author of the book, What Women Really Want. She's also the first woman to run a successful presidential campaign, and she specializes in being counselor to President Trump. Kellyanne Conway is here. And he's definitely not counselor to President Trump, but he was recruited by wrestling promoter Tommy Dreamer to become a pro wrestler after a bar fight. He voiced himself in the movie Scooby-Doo WrestleMania Mystery, and he also worked as bodyguard for rapper Snoop Dogg. And he specializes in fish tank husbandry. Apparently that's a person who breeds fish. Tyrus is here. That's right, he's mononymous, just like Cher or Sting. All right. So we were.
What other show? Let me see if I understand this right.
Okay.
That's an amazing resume. And then there was mine.
Right back.
Well, she's Kellyanne Conway.
And other stuff too.
She can't help it.
Ran a presidential campaign, but listen, husbandry to fish. That
Yeah.
you know.
I made that up. I literally did. I put power lifter, and they're like, what else?
I think I was more impressed with bodyguard for Snoop. Right?
Yeah, that was fun. Watch the guys.
All right. So we'll get to the top story on our special list. President Trump and the Republicans charging ahead with their health care overhaul push after yesterday's big victory in the House. Their comeback from an initial failure back in March is being celebrated by fellow Republicans.
Here's what I really like. They hit a wall. They backed up. They tried a second time, and they knew they were going to hit the wall, so they didn't take the vote. They kept working. They kept talking. Trump kept talking to people as late as yesterday, individually, developing amendments, thinking things through. The art of the deal, come to Washington, D.C. The president would never back off. He would never give up.
And House Republican leaders have not been shy with their praise of President Trump and his role particularly in helping get the bill over the finish line.
Mr. President, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank the Vice President. You know, I've only been through a few presidents, but I've never seen someone so hands-on. Walk into my office yesterday morning, they say the president's calling again. I know my members well. The president gives me a list of who he thinks I would be best to talk to on the list. And he was right. And Mr. President, they all voted for the bill.
Kellyanne Conway, no doubt the deal was done, and so much on the campaign trail. Many of us heard about this amazing business acumen of President Donald Trump, or then candidate Trump. And are we seeing what that really looks like now in a political way?
Yes, we are. And I think healthcare is just the most recent example of that. You've seen the incredible jobs numbers just out today. People like the Trump economy. They like the prospect of meaningful tax reform. He promised at the end of his Rose Garden ceremony yesterday, Eboni, that we would have the largest tax cut in U.S. history, which is also tax relief, middle-class tax relief. Also, small business owners will have a 15% tax bracket, which is just huge. I mean, it's unheard of. It's unheard of usually, and all the deductions will be gone except for charitable deductions and home mortgage interest, because many of those deductions usually benefit the special interest. But on health care, you really saw the president and the vice president's leadership. They were working the phones. They were hosting meetings. I was there on Wednesday when he welcomed in Congressman Billy Long from Missouri, Congressman Fred Upton of Michigan, both of whom had come out the day before publicly and said they could not vote yes, even though they had previously been maybes or yeses. And he had them to the White House and very politely, very courteously asked them their concerns, what might get them to yes, negotiated. There's something else we saw on full display that I don't think people know enough about President Trump. He's very patient. And a good deal maker is a patient person who waits for the best possible outcome that benefits people. He didn't come out yesterday and claim victory for the Republican Party. He claimed victory for the American people. And if you contrast that to the way the Democrats immediately went to the political repercussions of everything, that's not the way we're thinking. This is not a campaign. This is a president and vice president who are working to improve the lives of people. 40% increase in premiums overall. For some people, 100% premium increase. In states like Iowa, just this week, you see Aetna and Medica insurers pulling out of the exchanges. They say we simply cannot afford it. Obamacare was unaffordable and unsustainable long-term for people, and help is on the way.
All right, so T, we know that this has got still a long way to go, but it has successfully cleared one chamber. What, if anything, would you like to see worked on as it evolves, as it gets to the Senate?
One of the reasons why I voted for Mr. Trump was because I was looking at the land of the tape where it was going to be, GOP was in the House, it was in the Senate. So we're going to get things done. And I haven't seen a lot of that. And the fact that he had to go back, and he was making deals, but it would have been special for me if they were making deals with Democrats crossing over.
Wait. You haven't seen a lot of that? Hold on. You just say you haven't seen
They're welcome.
That?
This is the Atlanta Falcons. This is a halftime celebration.
Throw something at
when
you
the bill's a law, then I'll throw my hat in there.
There are 28 bills that this president has signed in 107 days, 106 days or so. Unemployment's at its lowest level in 10 years. You can credit Obama if you want.
No, I'm not. It's not about Obama.
Hourly wages are up. The stock market made record highs today, again today.
And where's that going to be at?
Here's what matters to Americans. When wages go up, wages went up 2.5% versus a year ago. Today that was announced. You know why that matters? Because 57% of Americans don't have enough money in their bank account to pay for an emergency $500 tire replacement, let alone not living from month to month or from check to check. This president is getting a lot done, and it's trickling down. But you don't hear that on mainstream media. On the street, you hear, "Oh yeah, he's tweeting," or "Oh yeah, did you hear what he said last night?"
I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just saying it's not a lie yet. Obamacare's still here. So until the Senate gets it done.
It took 17 months to put Obamacare in.
It is
I
a
think
process.
that's better, though.
That's why it's not a good time right now to be high-fiving.
I think
now would be like, we got step one down, we're going to roll up our sleeves and get some more work done. That's what I wanted to hear. I didn't need a
I
party.
would love to have Democrats, so respectfully, the president even said it yesterday. Kevin McCarthy, the majority leader, came out and said, when President Trump first contacted me, Kevin McCarthy, about health care, he said, don't do something that's good for the Republican Party. Do something that's good for the American people. And he did not claim victory for the Republican Party yesterday. We would love to have Democrats support us. Where are they? I have two questions for the Democrats. Who exactly is the leader of your party? I'm totally confused. Is it Hillary Clinton who won't go away?
We have no idea.
Is it Barack Obama? Is it Bernie Sanders? Is it Tom Perez? And second question is, what is the Democrats' message? Do they think Obamacare works? Can they really look people in the eye?
I think that we know that they don't, Kellyanne, from what Bill Clinton said on the campaign stump, that, the premiums are ridiculous. I think we do know that. But I think you make a good point, and you raise a good point about the cooperation, because Obamacare, one of the big criticisms, rightfully so, was that it was rammed down in a single partisan way. And I think a lot of people are hoping that we as America have learned the lessons from what that feels and looks like, and they're hoping that we see something different from this administration.
I agree with Tyrus, though. We don't know enough about it yet. I'm hoping to see better things happen in the Senate. I'm hoping to see maybe a little less involvement. But right now, in terms of, you can call it him being patient, I think it's not very patient to push something through before we have the CBO take a look at it, before we know how something is going to impact the American people. I obviously hope that it has a good impact on the American people. And we know that
hang that on Paul Ryan, though. You don't hang that on the White House.
Sure, and I absolutely do.
The way legislation works is the House puts the deal together, the legislation together, and they say, hey, Mr. President, we have this, and the American people like it, and we'll get votes for this. Unfortunately, Paul Ryan dropped the ball the first round, and Donald Trump had to get out there and knock on doors, shake hands, and say, listen, we're going to make this right for Americans, and he got them to jump on board on this, and you're right. Kat, it's going to go to the Senate.
It's a process.
Speaking of the Senate, that's actually the perfect segue, E. Last night, President Trump acknowledged that potential changes need to come for this Republican health care plan in the Senate.
It could change a little bit, could get maybe even better. It's a very good bill right now. The premiums are going to come down very substantially. The deductibles are going to come down. It's going to be fantastic health care. Right now, Obamacare is failing. So when you compare something to Obamacare, Obamacare is no longer living. And we have something that's going to be, I think, one of the best anywhere in the world, and we look forward to it.
So, Kat, you keep correctly acknowledging that we don't really know what's in it. We know what President Trump wants the outcome to be. We know what we want it to be. We know how we want it improved upon what we currently have. But realistically, what can we really expect?
We don't know what to expect. And, of course, it's a complicated thing, and this could be, and I hope it will be, something that's very different after it comes through the Senate. But it's so early to be celebrating because, I mean, Republicans have been talking about health care for a very long time, and it took so long, and it was so complicated, and it seemed that once they got the chance, it looked like they didn't know what to do, and then they had one chance and it didn't pass, and then they passed it through the House, and who knows what will happen in the Senate. But
Okay, I know. I know what's in it. I read it, and everybody else can read it. It's publicly posted. It's not the 2,700-page monstrosity that Nancy Pelosi apparently did not read before they passed it. She said you've got to pass it to read it. We also were told you can keep your plan, you can keep your doctor. That was a big fat lie. So I don't think anybody, Kat, is nostalgic.
I'm certainly not.
That's right, for what Obamacare has wrought. The 20 million people just last year who opted out of Obamacare altogether, 6.5 million of whom opted to pay the penalty.
I was one of them, Kellyanne.
That's right. There you go.
And I talk about that all the time. And so, see, but a chief criticism, though, Kellyanne, to be fair, is that for 7 years, Republicans have talked about their issues with health care and Obamacare.
And they won a lot of seats because of it.
Right, fine, absolutely.
Including the White House.
Lost a lot of seats. But here's the question. 7 years later, full control, basically. And
that's how they passed it yesterday. And they will pass it in the Senate.
But we're still talking about, are we going to have across state line coverage? I mean, there's certain things that I think some of us that really do want premiums to come down require. And you talk about this often. I think some of us really feel like that's the way to go.
This is very important that the Senate does get their hands on it. And the cross state lines thing was supposed to be phase 2, and hopefully it will be. I mean, I think a lot of fiscal conservatives want to see that so we can introduce competition into the health care and health insurance system to bring prices down. But don't forget why the I'll let them talk for, but what this did, the savings from this new health care system is going to be applied to the tax reform plan, which will be massive for every single American. Everyone looking
You buy that
right
tea?
now.
Does that make you feel better about it?
This is not Donald Trump's fault. And I agree with Eric on this point. The Republicans had 7 years. When Donald Trump came into office, he said, what do you guys want to do first? They said, we want to get rid of Obamacare. He said, cool, what do you got? And they came to the table with nothing. And then he had to get together and put a plan. So this is my issue with the Senate and the House, is that they talked a good game and they're bickering and they're not getting their stuff done that they're supposed to do. Donald Trump should have came in and be like, where's the plan, boys? Here it is, boss.
On a silver
Sounds
platter.
good. And we should have been
They'll be the first to tell you that, right? I mean, they had 7 years to get this thing together, and they presented, Paul Ryan and leadership presented something.
Well, but I like to focus on yesterday and moving forward, because this is a great success. They did come together and get something that made sense. The health savings accounts are in there. You can almost double your contribution. We're going to have these associated pools where the folks like plumbers, hairdressers who don't get employer-sponsored coverage like most of us do and aren't on government-run coverage like veterans benefits or Medicaid, Medicare, they'll be able to pool together. And the extra $8 billion that helps these folks with pre-existing conditions who happen to live in a state where a governor decides to waive out, decides to opt out.
Nervous about
that. That helps bring along a lot of the fence sitters, Eboni, because they were concerned about that, and the president met those concerns. But this is make no mistake, this is a collaborative effort. Healthcare legislation cannot come from the Oval Office alone, and the House can't pass something without the president and the vice president's imprimatur really being on that and working the phones and working the meetings. They feel very good. I think something else we learned yesterday is that this government can function. The House, the Senate, and the White House together watch. And I think the Democrats are going to be left out because they refuse to come on board. You know, George W. Bush in June of 2001, just 5 short months into his first term, he passed meaningful tax reform with 10 or 12 Democratic senators for it. We've gotten no indication there'll be a single senator who's interested in our tax reform plan. That's too bad.
Well, certainly the health reform has a long way to go. We'll get to it. But the Democrats and mainstream media hysteria after House Republicans did pass their health care bill yesterday. Their incredible reaction over the past 24 hours up next. And make sure you follow us on social media at SpecialistFNC on both Twitter and Facebook.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through.
That's preachy sound you've been hearing isn't your TV. It's the Democrats whining about the latest Trump campaign promise on its way to being fulfilled. Healthcare passed the House yesterday, and Democrats have been apoplectic ever since.
If the bill passed today in the House became law, thousands of Americans would die because they would no longer have access to health care.
This will cost American lives if it ever becomes law. This will mean death, pain, and suffering to people's families.
They're going down to celebrate something that comes way, way, way short of what the president looked the American public in the eye and said he was going to deliver.
It was really a stupid bill. It is a bill of deconstruction of government. From the beginning, Trump Care was a moral monstrosity that will devastate seniors, children, and hardworking Americans.
This crushing age tax will fall on some of the most vulnerable members of our society.
All right, Kellyanne, wow, we need a little Pampers for the Democrats. They seem like be a little sore losers, to say the least.
Thanks for showing the clips, because I think the more you shine a light on the political left these days, the better off President Trump and his policies will be. I mean, those were not serious comments. And shame on all the hosts who don't correct their guests either, or say, excuse me, what is your evidence of that? Why are you trying to scare people? Isn't it the job of the news media at the very basic level to inform you as to what's in the bill? You can disagree with it. Maybe. I think as a reporter, we can question that.
Eboni, Cory Booker was saying people are going to die.
Well, you know what? I have to push back a little bit, Kellyanne, respectfully. I think that he does believe that. I think that the criticism you
based
see,
on what?
And based off of what their view, as a party is as to what health care should look like, and they believe wholeheartedly. Now we could
what their view is.
We could disagree
for 7
with
years,
Obamacare,
that's how Donald Trump got elected in part.
100%. But as a party, they stand by it, certainly, and we know that to be true. So I'm not going to question the sincerity of what they're saying there. And also, yes, this meltdown component's one part, but we all know there's another conversation being had politically, Eric, and that is that they, as a party, the Democrats are seeing this as a little light at the end of the tunnel. This is a little glimmer of opportunity politically if this bill doesn't work and it doesn't make Americans happy, that they can get some seats back in 2018.
They still won't have a message. They're wrong. They still won't have a message.
But Kellyanne,
what about the dozen or so Democrats who voted against the bill yesterday in districts that Trump won?
Yeah.
They have to think about it. You got Maxine Waters in a different comment this week. She said she's going to stake her political career on going after Donald Trump. She represents a Democrat plus 29 district. There's a real profile and courage. Wow.
I mean, here's the thing. We live in, no, it's cool. I love listening to her talk. We live in an era of obstruction, and it's really a disservice to the American people. It's sad.
Agreed.
I believe that aliens took me on a camping trip when I was 4. Can't prove it, but I believe it happened, right? I don't have the right to go out and push that and try to scare people that aliens are going to take you on a ship. And saying people are going to die and all these horrible things are going to happen when the health insurance, before Obamacare, people had issues. The new health plan, people are still going to have issues. It's a huge country. Somebody's always going to be on the wrong foot. But that 1% of 1% is not what you try to tell everyone's going to happen. It's shameful to say. And I like Booker. I respect him a lot. But for him to come out and say, you're going to die when this bill happens, I think it's terrible.
He's actually my senator in New Jersey. I'm curious, what do you think Cory Booker's best accomplishment in the Senate, or even as mayor of Newark, has been?
Basically complaining about the other side.
Okay, here's the
unfortunately, that's all you have to do now.
There's a platform for
but it's become the platform of this country.
Watch me not be scared.
I don't agree with Eric, so therefore I don't like him. He's bad. I can prove it how. I just know.
Do you understand, though, that there's a difference between health insurance and health care? And when you talk about all these people are going to die if they don't have health insurance, this or that, in having insurance and the strong involvement of so many insurance companies is actually one of the things that raises prices. Areas of medicine that don't take health insurance, they've been dropping, while areas that do have gone up more than 450% in the past 30 years. Just because everyone has insurance doesn't mean things are going to be cheaper. It doesn't mean things are going to be more affordable. We're still not looking at anything from a patient-centered perspective. And healthcare is a very emotional thing, which is why people do go on TV and say, everyone's going to die, everyone's going to die, everyone's going to die. And I understand that works on people, but emotions don't have anything to do with market forces.
To your point, Kat, what happened under Obamacare is many people have the card and they literally can't use it.
So
they're tricked into believing they can't afford it.
They
can't afford the deductibles.
And the first 10 grand comes right out of their pocket.
But this plan gives more power and subsidies to subsidize insurance companies, and big insurance companies, believe it or not, absolutely do not do anything to lower prices of medical care, which is different from insurance.
Hang in there. I really want to get to this. While mainstream media's reaction to the passage of the GOP healthcare bill, more melodramatic lunacy on their part. Listen.
There was chanting on the floor of the House. Democrats taunting Republicans today, waving goodbye to them, predicting this vote will cost them with American voters come the midterms.
Last month, when this came up, the Congressional Budget Office said it would cost 24 million Americans their insurance. This time, the Republicans didn't wait for the CBO report.
And they didn't wait because the report was likely to be nearly as bad or perhaps even worse. But regardless, the number was not going to be a good one.
You break it, you own it. And anyone that loses their health care as a result of this will blame Republicans.
Look, this is hours after they signed this bill. Look, there's so much more that's going to go into this thing on the Senate side.
Makes me,
what's it all about?
It goes all back to the thing, like the singing on the floor. What are we, 6?
Exactly.
I mean, it's sad that they're hoping. And here's the wonderful world about politics in the world. This is early. So by the time election stuff comes around for the ones they're singing, you just lost your spot, there'll be other stuff on the table.
Yeah, but I don't think anything is more important.
They're just hoping that the same mistakes that they made with Obamacare, that the Republicans are going to make or do the exact same thing, and they'll get their seats back. But they didn't lose their seats because of that. They lost their seats because they shoved something down. They just wanted to get something passed. They didn't bother to think what the repercussions were going to be. Oh, we'll put an earmark here. We'll cut a loose. We'll cut a. You gave them this giant pie, and you kept taking pieces out for everybody. And then you hand America some crumbs, and then you wonder why they don't vote for you. And sorry, food, football, and lifting weights. Those are what I use for.
And pie. And pie.
Impact. Well, no, I was just going to say, I think some people have those same concerns, though, T, about this. Now, we don't know yet, Kellyanne, in fairness, and I'm not going to prematurely judge this health care package because we just don't know enough yet. But if, in the end, it doesn't bring down premiums, as Kat's pointing out, if, in the end, quality of care is not improved, Kellyanne, can you at least acknowledge that the Republicans will have to live or die by the consequences of this ultimately?
No? You're throwing out all these hypotheticals. I find some of them to be presumptively negative. What we do know is negative was Obamacare.
Well, I just asked the question.
But it is hypothetically could be bad.
If we're talking about politically, though, remember, this is the one issue in 2010, 2014, and 2016 that allowed the Republicans to win the House, the Senate, 938 seats in the state legislatures.
And with those wins comes an expectation, right?
Correct, and that's why they delivered yesterday without any Democratic votes. They're chanting like they're at a bonfire.
But most of us don't really know what they delivered, though, Kellyanne.
Excuse me, we just read it. And
you can read it. You can read the text of it literally and not know what the impact is going to be.
Okay, here's what it's not. It's not Obamacare. Okay, there's going to be flexibility to the states. There's going to be a sustainability and affordability. There's health savings accounts, which lets people to control their health care spending more. There will be pools. If the Senate gets their hands on it, there could be health care across state lines, the way that you buy your insurance.
But we're not there yet.
There's billions of dollars for people in pre-existing conditions.
Did somebody say it's not, though?
No, just saying it's
but you're talking about
they have a crazy idea. You could just wait and see what happens. Wouldn't that be
and
cool?
politically, the only time the Republicans were unsuccessful running on health care or against Obamacare was in 2012 when they nominated somebody who had Romney care, who could not give a full-throated opposition to Obamacare.
I can be I can be more than 50% certain that before this bill is finished making its way through the halls of Congress, it will be a situation where competition is introduced,
correct,
prices go down, and American people will have more access and more affordability in their health care, or then you're all right.
I'm not an American. As American E, I hope you're right.
I'm willing to sit back and wait.
There you go.
That's what I do.
Like the president.
I'll just wait. I'm gonna focus on my day-to-day operations, and when it comes down,
give
goes down.
The bill
I like
a
that.
chance.
Ooh,
Give
I
the
don't
bill
like
a chance.
that. But I'm gonna wait.
All right, some alarming news out of the Middle East. This morning, Iran apparently cozying up even further with North Korea. A nuclear state and an anti-American state sponsor of terror. What could possibly go wrong? That's next.
Here we go.
Developing news amid the rising tensions with North Korea. The Pentagon is raising alarms about military ties between Iran and the nuclear nation. U.S. officials telling Fox that earlier this week, Iran attempted to launch a new type of cruise missile from a submarine. They suspect the missile is based on a North Korean design. I don't know. I don't really like the sound of that, Kellyanne.
This is
a little scary.
Collusion between two rogue regimes bent on military buildup, and it's precisely why President Trump and candidate Trump are so against the Iran nuclear deal.
Of course.
As drafted by, well, I mean, it's incredible because speaking of Democrats and their support, a handful of Democrats were against President Obama when he came forward with that. Chuck Schumer, Bob Menendez, but the fact that we can name them, Eboni, means that they were so few in number. And this is why the JCPOA will be, is being evaluated by the Trump administration to see, is there anything meritorious about it? And he has been very clear that a nuclear-capable Iran and the deal that was certainly, I think, brokered by President Obama is a disaster.
Right, and I do like that Trump has shown that he's open to diplomacy and those sort of things. We got, Kim Jong-un is cuckoo bananas. This is a crazy person. He's coming out, he's accusing the U.S. and South Korea of the assassination attempt. I mean, what do you do when, maybe he believes, what do you do when someone's that nuts? It does get a little more complicated.
I think that there's a silver lining here. Yes, this is alarming. 80 million people in Iran, 25 million people in North Korea. North Korea has a nuclear weapon. Iran wants a nuclear weapon. But the good news is, listen, there are a lot of people who didn't like the way the relationship between Israel and President Obama was going. President Trump has a different relationship with Israel. The fact that Israel is at risk if Iran gets a nuclear weapon through North Korea will make sure that that region is going to be safe. There's not going to be a nuclearized, at least weaponized Iran anytime soon. And I think we would step in and make sure that didn't happen.
I was in Israel in the fall, as you know, and this gravely concerns me for our friends in Israel, quite literally, obviously. It's really very much so a problem. As for the relationship with the Trump administration in Israel, I'm very optimistic. I know Netanyahu and Trump have a good rapport. But President Trump, and maybe this is a question for you, Kellyanne, I know that he's also condemned the settlement. So can you give any insight as to his positioning on that and overall how that will affect that relationship?
Well, lost in an incredibly Trump-like news day yesterday with religious liberty executive orders, repealing Obamacare, meeting with the head of Australia, being at the 75th anniversary of the Intrepid, the usual Trump day of, constant activity, high energy, high impact. He also announced his first foreign trip, and it will include Israel. It'll also include Saudi Arabia. And he also will sit down again with Mr. Abbas, who was at the White House this week, the head of the Palestinian Authority. And then he will go to the Vatican to meet the Pope, and of course on to the G7 and NATO in Brussels as previously planned. But it tells you that this president and the Trump doctrine is one that reaches out and is open to a conversation and certainly in brokering peace. But and I think that's a very important message, but also it's very important substance for the world to see, particularly in the Middle East, that this president is willing to do that. And you've seen, Eboni and others, how many of the world's leaders have come to Washington to meet with this president in his first 100
I think that there have been several different Trump doctrines, particularly when we talk about things like Syria. But when it comes to North Korea, Tyrus, are you worried about this?
No, I couldn't be more ecstatic that Iran's getting their missile stuff from North Korea.
Right, exactly.
So they're both having the same issue. Did that happen when you guys did it? No. So their technology in Korea is not quite there, or our subs out there with the buttons are pretty good. So you two want to lump together. This is basically two kids are in a corner getting sanctioned out their mind, and their only friend is other sanctioned guys. So it just makes it a lot easier for the Pentagon if you want to tie those two together. And the fact that our relationship with Israel is even stronger, it's just a bet. No matter being together, whether they're apart, it's easy. I think it's an easy thing for you. Don't have to worry. The American people don't get confused when they're like, well, why are we going to North Korea? Why are we going to Iran? Oh, hey, they're Facebook friends? Cool, let's go together.
Think how scary this is. Iran has now a ton of money that we handed back over to them. North Korea with sanctions is going to need money. Iran wants nuclear weapons. This is scary.
And they're buying bad technology from North Korea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Couldn't be happier.
Absolutely scary stuff. All right. Why won't she just leave us alone? Hillary Clinton is launching a political action committee to take on President Trump's agenda. I wonder if Kellyanne has any opinions on that. Stick around.
It's time to move on. It's time to get going. What lies ahead, I have no way to know. But under my feet, baby, grass is...
Welcome back to the Fox News Specialists. Our specialists today are Kellyanne Conway, counselor to President Donald Trump, and Tyrus, a man who does not need nor want a last name. A conversation like a bad guest who decides to sleep over, not Tyrus, sleep over for the night. Hillary Clinton isn't just going away. Instead, she's reportedly about to launch a new political action committee. Its goal, to fund so-called resistance groups working to fight President Trump and his agenda. Got to go to Kellyanne right away on this one. Do the Democrats, are they for anything or just against Donald Trump?
Can anyone tell me what her message was in the campaign?
I'm a girl.
It's my turn.
And none of that worked. Well, she's proven that she's very good at resistance. She resisted going to Wisconsin at all. She resisted spending more time in Wisconsin and Michigan. She was going to turn Arizona and Georgia blue. That didn't work out. Donald Trump won all 4 of those states. She's resistant to respecting people enough to not call them deplorable and irredeemable. And she spent over $2 billion in her campaign, it's reported. A woman who knows how to spend money, that's new. And this PAC, this Political Action Committee, I would note for you that many elected Democrats this week and many of her comrades in the mainstream media were critical and skeptical of her return this week. She's free to do what she wants, but the Democrats who gave money to her campaign and to the outside groups that supported her, they wanted her to win the White House. They don't want her to oppose President Trump once he's there.
I mean, what is the Democrat message? I don't even know what it is anymore.
Well, I've had several suggestions on air, E, for my Democrat friends, and they're not really listening. Certainly, you've got to have an economic message that connects and makes people feel that life will be better with your leadership, and they have not articulated that, to Kellyanne's point. I think our colleague Richard Fowler, Fox News contributor, said it pretty nicely on Twitter. Girl Hillary, please just go have a seat, akin to like girl bye. It's time to go sit down somewhere. You had a failed campaign, which is not in and of itself something to be ashamed of, but you cannot come back and just have a purely resistant message. You have to give some people something to vote for, Eric, not just against.
Do you give Hillary Clinton money? Kellyanne points out you gave her $2 billion, she blew it. Do you give her more money?
Right, and she's still trying to fight Trump. She's still trying to fight Trump. It's ridiculous. It's like so John Tucker must die that it's ridiculous, right?
By the way, this from the woman who said what? It was, quote, frightening that he wouldn't accept the election results. She still
exactly.
It's going to be 6 months this Monday. Who's counting?
It gets to the point. It gets to the point where you have to say,
Tyrus, what are we doing to celebrate?
It gets to the point where you have to say, I'm sorry, Hillary, that Donald Trump broke your heart, but he has moved on, and any good therapist would recommend that you do the same. If you want to get involved in politics, if you want to be, like you said, pro something, if you want to support Democratic causes, or this is anti-Trump personally. It's clearly a personal vendetta.
Absolutely nothing to do with Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with the Republican Party. It has nothing to do with Democrats. It's about to make some money. Now, here's the deal. She's going to come back. She's going to make some speeches, and the obstruction groups and the angry protesting groups are going to pay her a ton of money to promise them new sunshine, and then she's going to take that profit and she's going to go away again. I mean, the best ever. When Romney lost to Obama, he didn't start a Romney opposition fund. He went away and he went on with his life. And, and when it was all over, he became respected, and they appreciate him for his efforts, right? Most of us. But she's literally coming back to make some damn money, period.
You know what, Tyrus? Note how she's not going into public service. She's always said she's been for women and girls. Then go do something to help women and girls, because the poverty rates for women, including extreme poverty, went up the last 8 years. The uninsured number for women went up the last 8 years. She can actually say no money. No money. But if she really wanted to help people, she'd be welcome to help people. That's not what she says. If it's just going to be another, pro-abortion thing, we've already got.
There's plenty of that. Plenty of that money floating.
No money in it.
Leave it right there. Immigrant activists preparing for battle over Texas's new sanctuary city ban when we come right back.
Immigration activists in an uproar and vowing a fight after the Texas legislature passes one of the harshest anti-sanctuary city bills in America. It would impose heavy fines and even possibly jail time to any Texas official who fails to follow federal immigration law. Now, Governor Greg Abbott is expected to sign the bill soon, and the controversy around the legislation is baffling many of its supporters.
It's amazing to me that elected officials would put their own citizens at risk for political correctness and diversity, et cetera, et cetera. Our first duty as elected officials is to uphold the safety and national security of our own constituents and our own country and constituencies.
So, Kellyanne, I don't disagree with any of that. I know Governor Abbott is going to be on Tucker Carlson tonight at 8 p.m. He'll certainly be addressing this very directly. I have the lawyer in me has come up with a creative solution, and I'd love to know your take on it, because I believe in a sovereign nation as well. At the same time, I do think that we should have a working immigration system, and we don't. So this is my idea. we spend money on a lot of things in this country. What if the Trump administration spent money on federal enforcement of this, right? So that we're not so dependent. If states want to opt out of cooperating with federal law, which I do not agree with, then forget them. Let's bypass that and have federal enforcement at this so we don't have other situations like a Kate Steinle where people are refusing to communicate with one another and people are getting killed in the process.
Thanks for mentioning her name, because
Yes.
if people need a real example of what happens when you allow, in that case, a 5-time deported criminal,
Yes.
illegal alien, to come back to the San Francisco area and kill an innocent woman in her father's arms. So Kate Steinle, Steinle, don't ever forget it. On this, though, you may have a point about, it's your point, of course, about immigration law, but just yesterday in the funding, again, something that didn't get a lot of coverage because it was such a busy news day, there was funding for border security, for immigration, that we haven't really unpacked yet in the news. That is very important and big steps towards what President Trump has said his first duty is to keep the people of this country safe and secure. Sanctuary cities is different, though. Basically, you're told, enforce the law. You have to enforce the law, and your failure to enforce the law, if you break the law tonight, you will be punished.
Well, actually, the 10th Amendment prohibits the federal government from enforcing states, or excuse me, from forcing states
This is a state law.
From forcing states to enforce their regulatory program. So what Trump was trying to do in terms of telling the states that they have to do certain things with immigration is a federal issue, that's illegal. And also, he can't withhold funds in a coercive manner. That's unconstitutional.
Well, this
Courts have found that time and time
I'm
again.
not suggesting
this is something
that
at
he
a
would.
state
This is
level.
Texas. This is Texas.
Right. That's something. This is
And
different.
they're
There's something
going
at
to
a
sign it
state
into
level.
law.
When you talk about the federal government having to force states to comply with the federal program, they actually can't do that because of federalism.
I don't
think
at all.
you're saying that.
No, that's
but
not
on
what I'm
sanctuary
suggesting
cities,
at
we
all.
should all know what this is.
Yes, I'm talking about the opposite of that, Kat. I'm
Sanctuary
talking about
cities
let
is-
federal agents do what they do federally and states do what they do statewide.
Right, and this is the state of Texas. They've got 2 sanctuary counties, as I understand it. They have 1.8 million illegal immigrants, as I read the statistics in the documents. But it's also basically saying to people, whether you're a state or in the case of President Trump and Attorney General Sessions has been saying with respect to federal immigration law, you have to enforce the law, and if you don't, you'll be punished. This also applies to cities and colleges, as I read this. So it's fascinating to me that people would be resistant and be willing to pay a penalty and say, well, all I did was break the law. That's what you do when you break the law.
My take is I think this is the system. This is the process. And this is what the founding fathers wanted, where a state like Texas can go hard line and say, you know, our police officers, if they pull someone over, they can ask them for a green card. If they don't have it, they can bring them in. Whereas another state like California can go the exact opposite way and say, you know what, we're a state of sanctuary cities, and we're going to do the exact opposite, but that's what makes America great. If you don't like it, then move to the state you prefer.
Another state. You good with that state-by-state thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it almost has to be. I mean, what's confusing for me is growing up, I wasn't allowed to pick and choose the laws that me and my friends might have gotten in trouble for because I would have picked a few different ones. So, you know, and for someone like, if being a legal immigrant is against the law and you were caught and I was a police officer, I would turn you over because you broke the law.
That's where the word illegal comes from, by the way.
It was illegal.
But I do think that the feds can, and there is a way that the feds can hold back some funds. Certainly the funding.
Not a coercive amount of funding.
But the funding that they're normally reimbursed for holding illegals, you pull that back. I mean, no state's going to want to lose the funding.
Depends if the courts decide if it's coercive or not.
I think if it's Judge Eboni, we just bypass all that and let the states do what they do and the feds do what they do. But don't go away, because we're going to circle right back with our specialist after this.
Time for our daily segment, Circle Back. This is where we return to an insightful point made by one of our specialists earlier in the show, or Eric, Eboni, and I get answers to any burning questions we may have for them. Kellyanne, I'm going to go to you. Monday, we got Sally Yates. What can we expect from that?
Well, she'll be under oath telling us what she knew and when she knew it, and she will wait to hear what she has to say. But for me tonight, I'm just going to go spend the rest of my night with The 4 little people in my life.
Wait a minute. That was my question.
Overdressed, over makeup
Don't you have
mom.
to do something else before that?
I do. I have to join you. Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to join you on Hannity.
On Hannity at 10 o'clock.
Right.
And I was going to say, what are you doing later on tonight? But I didn't want your husband's sitting right over there, George. I didn't want him to think anything funny. My wife's watching right now. So.
That's
10 o'clock.
And then Tyrus, we'll see you later. We're at the Gutfeld show together.
Yeah,
I don't know if we
that's
know.
a great,
Me and this guy know each other.
Thanks.
So.
Thanks for the question.
I have a question for you,
She gets
Tim.
asked about world issues. I guess where I'm going to be in 10 minutes. Great.
Yeah, you might not like my question, but as a fellow former NOLA gal, I need to know your favorite restaurant in New Orleans because the food is so good.
Why'd you do this to me? Oh, man, 557 or 527 is a steak restaurant in New Orleans. It's phenomenal.
Good.
NOLA?
NOLA, yeah.
No, Mandeville.
Oh, he's in Mandeville.
Across the bridge.
Yeah.
No, I mean the restaurant NOLA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a great one, too. Yeah, I mean, my favorite, goodness, Galatoire's is fantastic. It's great.
But again, Ms. Conway gets asked about Yates, and I get asked about food.
Would you like to weigh in on Yates, Tyrus?
Whatever. I'm just waiting to see what happens.
When did you ditch your last name?
Did you hear this?
Where did I get my last name?
When did you ditch it?
When I got into wrestling.
About 4 o'clock?
There was some breaking news that happened today. We didn't touch on it, but I think there was some news that the Obama administration was actually surveilling some other GOP candidates during the 2016 election. That's pretty big news.
I saw that one of those candidates has asked for answers to those questions, actually.
That's Rand Paul.
would like to know.
Yeah, Rand Paul wants to know who was listening in and why. Americans. You would want to know that
exactly.
too, right?
That's why Rand Paul and libertarians are talking about surveillance this whole time. They're watching and they're listening, and they got to stop it. All right. Thank you to our Fox News specialists today, Kellyanne Conway and Tyrus. And we thank you all for watching. And make sure to follow us on social media, Specialist FNC on Twitter and Facebook. Remember, 5 o'clock will never be the same. Special Report is next.